Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Let's Play here on the Zen-Tube channel. I wanted to congratulate everybody and give my heartfelt thanks to those of you who had subscribed to the channel. Don't think I haven't noticed that the subscriber count has hit 200. Now, to be fair, about, I want to say 30, maybe 40 of you had probably subscribed to me since, well, back around the 2010s, back when back when this was a tarot reading channel. And, you know, to be fair, that being said, that means that some of you might be subscribed to me and don't even know it, or don't even remember, because around that time we didn't even have the bell icon. So there's a good chance that some of you aren't being notified of newer updates. Now, in all fairness, however, a subscription is a subscription, and so I have to thank you. Although, to be fair, this may be a little bit of a lower number, but I am, again, grateful all the same. So, I wanted to celebrate by playing a game from my childhood, specifically my handheld days. Now, I didn't actually have a Game Boy growing up, and that was more my stepbrother's thing. I had a GameGear, and in fact, we both got our respective handhelds at the same time. My brother would get a Game Boy, and I would get a GameGear. Now, in retrospect, is that kind of a flex? Well, here's the thing, right? Game Gear and the Game Boy, I mean, it was around the time when Sega and Nintendo were on the outs, right? During the quote-unquote console wars. Yes, I would say that, I mean, graphically, yes. Technically, the Game Gear was better, but I would say that Nintendo had games that were better suited for the console. In fact, some of the games listed here were actually originally Sega Master System titles, just simply ported over to the newer hardware. But it's one of those issues where just because it's newer hardware doesn't necessarily mean it converted well enough. Case in point, like the difference between a Super Nintendo game and its re-release on the Game Boy Advance. I mean, just because it has more bells and whistles doesn't mean it's necessarily capable in all areas. The term video compression and sounds come to mind. This being no exception. Now, the pack-in title for my Game Gear was Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Well, for the Game Gear. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't beat it until I was about 16. It was one of those things where, I mean, there just wasn't an internet, and, I didn't have a Game Genie to help me, so here we are. Now, as you've probably noticed, I am playing this, once again, on the Sonic Origins Plus collection here, so that's why I have the sound muted, because I didn't want to drown out the game with game from the main menus at all. So, anyway, in honor of our 200 subscribers, let's begin. This isn't going to be a full-on playthrough. Well, I mean, I'm not going to play through it in one setting. I'm going to separate this into separate videos. But the good news is, these videos aren't supposed to be, with the exception of this intro, the videos aren't going to be as long. And the good news is that these do have a built-in save state, so I happen to have saved a save state a little bit further into the final battle with all the emeralds. This is one of those titles where if you didn't have where you could get a canonical bad ending. Unfortunately, this isn't one of those supersonic games where you turn into supersonic, so in fact, the number of emeralds we're dealing with is still 6 here, so anyway, without further ado, let's begin. maybe I'll turn it down just a little bit. Okay, so contrary to popular belief, this, I believe, was actually the game that Tails first debuted. Although you don't actually get to play as Tails. In fact, he's, as you can see here, our kidnap victim. Oh. So one thing I failed to show off is that these Game Gear titles are true to the originals, and that yes, there is a level select code here. In order to activate the level select code, now I'm playing this game on the Switch, so you may want to pay attention here. Let's see. Of course, unfortunately, we have to wait until after this goes by. Okay. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to press and hold the left and down on the D-pad, the A and B buttons. Again, keep these buttons pressed. Now, also press and hold the X button, which would be the start button on the Game Gear. Keep these held down until, then release and hit the X button. Release all the buttons and hit the X button. And here we are. We have a zone select. Now, there's nothing wrong with using the zone select except, well, there are no further codes to start with Emerald, so if you want the real true ending, you have to go through the levels. You have to go through each and every zone and get the corresponding Emerald. Underground, Sky High, Aqua Lake, Green Hills zone, and Gimmick Mountain, they all have their emeralds in the second act of each zone. The Scrambled Egg zone's emerald, you can't miss. If you have the other 5 before reaching Scrambled Egg, then it will be held by what was then called Silver Sonic. Actually, I've heard other names for this one. I think they call it the Bionic Sonic, not to be confused with Mecha Sonic from the Genesis Sonic 2. So, anyway, so if you don't have all the emeralds by the end of Scrambled Egg, the game just ends right there, and you don't get to go to the Crystal Egg. Incidentally, if you use the level select code to just skip to the Crystal Egg zone, you'll also get the bad ending if you don't have the other emeralds. So, anyway, we'll just go ahead and start with Act 1. Oh, B button. We'll just go ahead and start with the first act anyway. I just thought I'd show that off. So, despite being Sonic 2, this doesn't have the spin dash, but you can still roll into barriers, like in Genesis Sonic 1. Probably one of the first zones that, probably one of the first and few Sonic games that didn't begin in Green Hill, huh? As far as classic titles go. Now, one of the biggest complaints about the Game Gear titles in this collection, prior to them giving us audio options, was the ability to turn the audio from mono to stereo and vice versa. Yeah, as you can see, the game's relatively short otherwise, so... Okay. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here, open that up, just in case I fail. Actually... I just wanted to grab the extra life there. Yeah, so unlike the Genesis titles, this is one of those Sonic games where if you get 100 rings, you lose, you know, you don't store anything beyond 99 rings. They'll just give you a life for it. So you want to come up here, follow the trail of rings, jump out of this minecart, and presto, you got your first emerald. You get... Okay, and I just lost the rings, actually. Okay, so if you have a multiple of, I think with the exception of 77 rings, if you have a multiple of 10 rings, even 0, you get 10 rings. So there is a way to manipulate the signboard at the end. But yeah, every time you get an emerald, the game rewards you with a continue. I think there is a Tails sign panel, but it's very rare. I don't remember exactly how to invoke it, if one can invoke it, if it's just completely random. I don't know. But anyway, yes, you get continues in this game. Also, this is probably the first time Eggman, or Robotnik as he was known as in the days, actually goes to save you only to put you in peril of one of his creations. Now, I made that look easy, but believe me, it was just as difficult on the original hardware as, well, on the original Game Gear as it is this version. So yeah, that's the first zone right there. Probably only 5 minutes. Probably only took 5 minutes, huh? For the whole thing. This zone, you know, about the same. Just jump over the gaps, come up here. Now again, you gotta make sure you hold the down. You gotta make sure you're holding down on the D-pad if you want to roll into enemies and such. Okay. Okay, well, like I said, nothing at home to write about, huh? Okay, so this right here is probably the most difficult emerald to get. Basically, the emerald is, well, sky high. But to reach it, they give you a few options here. You can use the hang gliders and get lucky, which I don't recommend, honestly. See, the problem with the hang gliders is that, well, you never know where you're going to drop from. Also, there's quite a bit of open gaps, honestly. Probably too many, if you ask me. Oh, and I believe enemies do respawn, so, yeah. That's something to worry about. I mean, you still get points for the enemies, but... Okay, so... If you notice, the springs are hidden inside... Well, the springs are hidden inside these plus-shaped clouds. Now, there's one there, and there's one here, but there's another one that we need to find. It's like right there. Again, screen crunch doesn't exactly help. Also, when you lose your rings, you can only really obtain one. You know, it's not like the Genesis title where, you know, a bunch fall out and you can collect upwards of like 20. Okay, so you see these three clouds, you see where Sonic's head's at? Those three, about just to the right of that cloud where his head's at, is just where we need to fall to. Because that's the only spring cloud that'll probably be able to reach that emerald. Oops. Okay, well, if you collect all the rings, it's kind of even harder to see where the clouds are all at. Okay, so, jump here. Okay, here we go. This is it. Yeah, you want to hit right as soon as you hit that spring that just propelled us forward. And after that, you could just come up here and just grab a hang glider, and you can glide your way to the end. You have to use a hang glider to get to the end. Also, if you hit the top of the screen with the hang glider, you'll fall. Yeah, so... And there we go. Plain sailing, huh? Okay, so if you hadn't noticed already, every Act 3 has no rings. So, yeah, this is one of those rare games where, you know, you can't tell if it's made to be difficult on purpose to coincide with the fact that the game is short. I mean, it's kind of like Marble Madness, you know. The game was fun, difficult, but I came to find out that the game was really only a few levels long. Okay. Oh well. That was bound to happen eventually, huh? The most frustrating part, however, is, you know, losing a life or on your way to the boss or at the boss and then have to make your way to the boss all over again. There's no real rush when you're fighting the boss, so this music that's supposed to be all hype, you know, where the beeping begins, yeah, there's nothing to worry about. Okay. Interestingly enough, despite not playing as Tails, Tails is in all the title cards. Kind of makes me wonder if there was supposed to be, if Tails was ever supposed to be in this game, and they cut him, and they had to cut him because due to time constraints. I don't know. Not sure if it's an early form of, you know, crunch time, but oh yeah, I forgot. The signpost is actually down here in the water. I apologize if this hurts anybody's eyes, but and there we go. Okay, so now comes one of the difficult levels. Aqua Lake Act 2. The entire level is submerged in water, or it's filling up with water now. Unfortunately, there's a great deal... When Sonic is in the water, he's got a great deal of knockback damage. In fact, I recommend taking the lower path, if only because you get invincibility down here. Oh, and yeah, you may want to grab air bubbles or ride the larger air bubbles. Apart from that, this path is more or less pretty linear. Actually, it's not like the labyrinth where you could get lost, you know. Then you got instances like this where, actually, I don't think I needed the. You got instances like that where you have to be just right to even be able to make it across the gaps like that. You have to press and hold the down and left or right buttons on the D-pad. I mean, if you're playing on the Switch, you could use your Joy-Con or a Pro controller, but I don't know. For some reason, I just prefer the D-pad, honestly. Okay, so I got a life for 100 rings, and they took away the rings, so... Okay, so if you want the emerald, you have to come down here. Now, now this long tube, this tube, and this part's very important. You'll want to hold left on the D-pad. If you're not holding left on the D-pad, you will miss the emerald. Was it here? Oh, maybe the tunnel's further ahead. Okay. Alright, now hang left. If you don't hang left, you'll miss the emerald. Otherwise, you can't miss it. It's kind of cheap to miss this one, honestly, but I don't know. It is easier than the one in Sky High, at least, so I guess I can't complain too loudly. Oh, got a life. Yeah, so apart from that, you know, you just come here, and this is the difficult part. You want to press down on the D-pad to bait the spears from launching to launch prematurely so that they don't puncture the air bubble. Also, you want to avoid these, I think they're supposed to be crawdads. They don't look like... I mean, I know they kind of look like lobsters, but I don't know. For some reason, my mind gravitates towards crawdads. And then you just come up here. And there we go. Easy otherwise. Now, thankfully, the next level here isn't going to be submerged in water, so nothing to worry about here. Okay, so you got a seal bot. You got a boss who looks like a seal, and to damage this boss, you have to blow up the balloon in his face. And bear in mind, you don't get rings for this. You don't get rings for any of these bosses, so... I mean, if you're playing on the Origins collection like I am, you could probably just abuse the save state function by pressing the plus button on the Switch controller, you know, and then hit save. But actually, with as well as I'm playing, I probably don't even need to really abuse the save state necessary to see the good ending, regardless of whether we get the emeralds. Okay. And there we go. Yeah, so that's another zone down. What is that? 3 in less than 30 minutes? Wow. And that's even with the long-winded intro. Okay, well, arbitrarily and because I need to spread out the content, I'm going to end this episode here. So tune in next week or whenever, probably no longer than a week, for the next episode, which may actually be the last one, maybe. Like I said, it's a relatively short game when you know what you're doing. So anyway, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel, all 200 of you. Here's to many more subscribers, hopefully. So, yeah, for those of you who are new to the channel, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's see if we can't get this number higher, eh? Until then, I'll see you in the next one.